5 minutes ago, the United Kingdom ceased to function as a democracy in the way we have understood it for the last 300 years. What just happened behind the gilded gates of Buckingham Palace is not just a constitutional crisis. It is the absolute detonation of the British political system. If you are listening to this right now, you are witnessing a moment that historians will be analyzing for the next century. The rumor mill has been churning all morning, but we can now confirm from 3 separate palace sources that the unthinkable has actually occurred. King Charles III has officially refused royal assent. Let that sink in for a moment. For over 300 years, ever since the reign of Queen Anne in 1708, the monarch's signature on a bill passed by Parliament has been a mere formality. It was supposed to be a ceremonial rubber stamp, the golden rule of our unwritten constitution that says Parliament decides and the King agrees. But today at 4:00 p.m. London time, that rule was shattered into a million pieces. According to leaks coming directly from the King's private study, the Emergency Stability Bill, the controversial law Prime Minister Starmer pushed through Parliament in a record 24-hour session, was presented to the King for his final signature. It was supposed to be routine. The Prime Minister's aides were already preparing the press release to announce the new law. But when the private secretary placed the document on the mahogany desk, King Charles did not reach for his pen. Witnesses described the atmosphere in the room as suffocating. One insider reported that the King read the document in total silence for nearly 10 minutes. The ticking of the clock was the only sound in the room, growing louder with every passing second. The government messenger, a senior civil servant who has served 4 prime ministers, reportedly began to sweat, sensing that the atmosphere had shifted from ceremonial to hostile. Then the King looked up. He didn't shout. He didn't rage. He simply closed the red leather folder, pushed it across the desk, and uttered 4 words that have effectively frozen the British government. "I cannot sign this." The messenger was stunned. He reportedly stammered, reminding His Majesty that the bill had passed the House of Commons and the House of Lords. He reminded the King of the constitutional duty. But Charles stood up, walked to the window, looking out over the mall, and refused to engage further. The meeting was over. The bill was dead on arrival. Within seconds, a coded message was flashed to Downing Street. "London Bridge has blocked the path." When that message hit Karma's secure device, the color reportedly drained from his face. The Prime Minister, who had staked his entire survival on this new law, realized instantly that he wasn't just fighting the opposition party anymore. He was now at war with the Crown itself. And now the chaos begins. As we speak, government lawyers are scrambling to find a precedent that doesn't exist. There is no manual for this. There is no protocol for when the King says no. Does the government fall? Does the King abdicate? Or are we staring at the suspension of Parliament itself? The frightening reality is that nobody knows what happens in the next hour. But what we do know is that the King's refusal wasn't a random act. It was a calculated strike. And the reason why he refused to sign the specific clause in Starr's law that triggered this royal veto is far more terrifying than anyone in the media is telling you. To understand why the King took such a drastic step, we have to peel back the layers of deception that surrounded this legislation. The media had been briefed to call it the National Stability Bill, a harmless name designed to calm the markets and reassure the public. But sources close to the monarch reveal that King Charles saw right through the branding. He wasn't looking at the title. He was looking at page 82, paragraph 4, a section that has now become the most dangerous text in British history. Clause 44. This wasn't just a law to stabilize the economy. According to legal experts who have now seen the draft, Clause 44 effectively handed the Prime Minister the authority to bypass Parliament entirely during a declared emergency. It was, in the King's eyes, a quiet coup, a mechanism that would have allowed Downing Street to rule by decree, suspending civil liberties and silencing opposition without a single vote being cast. The King realized that by signing this document, he wouldn't just be approving a law. He would be signing the death warrant of British democracy. Back inside number 10 Downing Street, the atmosphere had shifted from shock to blinding rage. When the coded message arrived confirming the royal veto, Prime Minister Starmer didn't just sit down. He reportedly ordered the room to be cleared of all non-essential staff. The doors to the cabinet room were locked and the blinds were drawn. For the first time in his premiership, Starmer looked like a man cornered, realizing that his gamble for total control had backfired in the most spectacular way possible. Senior advisers began shouting over one another. Some urged the Prime Minister to resign immediately to save face. Others, the more hawkish members of his inner circle, suggested something far more dangerous. They argued that the King's refusal was an act of war against the elected government. They told Starmer to fight back, and that is exactly what they are planning to do right now. Leaks from inside that locked room suggest that the government is preparing to issue a constitutional ultimatum. They are drafting a response that accuses the King of overstepping his boundaries, of interfering in the will of the people. They are preparing to weaponize the media to paint Charles not as the protector of democracy but as an enemy of progress. It is a high-stakes game of chicken. Starmer is betting that the public will side with the elected politician over the unelected monarch. But the Prime Minister has made a fatal miscalculation. He assumes the King is acting alone. He assumes the palace is isolated. He is wrong. While Starmer was arguing with his cabinet, a convoy of black Range Rovers was spotted leaving the Ministry of Defence, heading not toward Downing Street, but directly toward Buckingham Palace. The military top brass has entered the chat.